Did you ever walk when your feet were tired? Did you ever walk when the road was gone? Did you ever sing when your heart was aching? Did you ever sing just 'cause there's a song? I will walk and I will sing and I will bring a little courage for the morning, bring a little courage for the day. Did you ever laugh when all hope was lost? Did you ever laugh just to ease the pain? Did you ever weep till the tears were gone? Did you ever weep teardrops like rain? I will laugh and I will weep. I will bring a little courage for the morning, bring a little courage for the day. Did you ever stand when the rest was silent? Did you ever stand a million strong? Did you ever dream in the darkest hour? Did you ever dream right to change the wrong? I will stand and I will dream and I will bring a little courage for the morning, bring a little courage for the day. I will walk and I will sing and I will laugh and I will weep and I will stand and I will dream and I will bring a little courage for the morning, bring a little courage for the day.
Welcome to this virtual service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Waynesboro for Sunday, September 5th, 2021. This congregation is a welcoming congregation and considers diversity to be a source of strength. We have covenanted with all Unitarian Universalist congregations to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person and reverence for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. We are accepting of all without regard for gender or sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, religious background, economic status, or physical challenges. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you are on your life's journey, welcome. My name is Kay Yost, and I am a member of the UUFW and currently serve on our worship arts team. When I signed up to be our lay service leader for September 5th, I fully expected to be standing in front of you in Fellowship Hall. However, a surge of COVID-19 cases in our area and increasing numbers of patients in our local hospitals resulted in our decision to temporarily suspend in-person services. Once again, we are reminded of how important it is to be nimble. We do this out of concern for the health and well-being of our members and our local community. If you are a visitor here, I thank you for spending time with us today and invite you to come visit us in Fellowship Hall in Waynesboro, Virginia, whenever our in-person services resume. Please note that contact information and details on how to donate to the fellowship appear at the end of this video. The flaming chalice is a symbol of our faith, and it is our tradition to light the chalice during the opening of every service. I now share these words for the lighting of the chalice. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers, to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Our words of prayer today are by John Rodell. He's an improv comedian and poet and is from a family of pharmacists, mathematicians, and engineers from Cheyenne, Wyoming. He accidentally stumbled into this thing called spirituality through the practice of the improv rule of yes and. His words. My brain and my heart divorced a decade ago over who was to blame about how big of a mess I've become. Eventually, they couldn't be in the same room with each other. Now my head and my heart share custody of me. I stay with my brain during the week, and my heart gets me on weekends. They never speak to one another. Instead, they give me the same note to pass to each other every week, and their notes they send to one another always say the same thing: "This is all your fault." On Sundays, my heart complains about how my head has let me down in the past, and on Wednesday, my head lists all of the times my heart has screwed up things for me in the future. They blame each other for the state of my life. There's been a lot of yelling and crying, and so lately I've been spending a lot of time with my gut, who serves as my unofficial therapist. Most nights I sneak out of the window in my rib cage and slide down my spine and collapse on my gut's plush leather chair that's always open for me. And I just sit until the sun comes up. Last evening, my gut asked me if I was having a hard time being caught between my heart and my head. I nodded. I said I didn't know if I could live with either of them anymore. My heart is always sad about something that happened yesterday, while my head is always worried about something that may happen tomorrow, I lamented. My gut squeezed my hand. I just can't live with my mistakes of the past or my anxiety about the future, I sighed. My gut smiled and said, "In that case, you should go stay with your lungs for a while." I was confused. The look on my face gave it away. If you are exhausted about your heart's obsession with the fixed past and your mind's focused on the uncertain future, your lungs are the perfect place for you. There is no yesterday in your lungs. There is no tomorrow there either. There's only now. There's only inhale and exhale. There is only this moment. There's only breath. And in that breath, you can rest while your heart and head work their relationship out. This morning, while my brain was busy reading tea leaves, and while my heart was staring at old photographs, I packed a little bag and walked to the door of my lungs. Before I could even knock, she opened the door with a smile, and as a gust of air embraced me, she said, "What took you so long?" Breathe in, breathe out. There is no yesterday in your lungs. There is no tomorrow there either. There is only now. There is only inhale. There is only exhale. There is only this moment. There is only breath. And in that breath, you can rest while your heart and your head work their relationship out. Breathe in, breathe out. Each Sunday morning when we come together in person, we spend time sharing our personal joys and sorrows with each other. Today in this format, we do not physically hear what those joys and sorrows are, but we know that those around us, those we care for, that we can't see in person today, have joys and sorrows, and sometimes both together in their lives. So let us hold their joys and their sorrows together in our hearts in a time of quiet.
Good morning. My name is Marilyn Nash. Our reading today is entitled Einstein on Time by Ken Nye. Someone told me once that Einstein thought time is a variable. That's to say that time is not a constant. Are you following this? I think Einstein was right. When I was a child, a year was a year. Now a year is a week. When I was a child, a week was a whole bunch of days of limitless possibilities so numerous that I planned ahead only as far as the afternoon. Now a week is a few meetings interspersed with frenetic activity that I have apparently convinced myself is important. Never mind enjoying the moment, never mind stopping to smell the roses. Yesterday, a lifetime was forever, immeasurable, like a light year. But today, swirling in a mix of tomorrows and yesterdays, a light year is comprehensible, measurable, and finite. But let's not talk cosmic stuff. Let's not throw in big words to impress. If Einstein was right, and I think he was. Where is the throttle? How do I slow this thing down?
This Monday is Labor Day, a day of celebrating the honor inherent in honorable work and the just achievements of organized labor aimed at raising the standard of living of working people and narrowing the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Achievements in increasing workplace safety, establishing norms of leisure time and its pursuits, and the ability to begin growing economic stability that transcends generations. Maybe it's a good day for a cookout or to spend at the lake or the shore, but its purpose is especially meaningful and valuable in this time of the growing gap between the wealthy and the rest of us. In this time of this demise, sometimes quick, sometimes slow in its appearance, but in the demise of the American middle class. And on Monday evening, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, symbolically the birthday of the world, begins. Tradition requires hearing the sound of the shofar, that raucous sound of the trumpet made from a ram's horn. In addition to apples and honey and wishing each other a sweet new year, in addition to this holiday's role in the traditional process of judgment and redemption, in addition to gathering for long hours of prayer in synagogues, including choirs and other special music, for me, Rosh Hashanah also always entails remembering my Aunt Louise, who died 8 years ago on the morning before the start of Rosh Hashanah. I was singing in the High Holiday Choir of the Central Reformed Congregation in St. Louis, and it was meeting in the Khorasan Ballroom at the Chase Park Plaza Hotel, a venue that was large enough to house the nearly 2,000 people who attended their Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur evening services. While I was parking the car to go in and warm up with the choir, I got the call that my aunt had died. The traditional words in the service's liturgy about who would live and who would die, who by fire and who by water, those were all rendered particularly poignant that year. But what I'd like to think about now as Rosh Hashanah approaches is something that happens only 1 out of every 7 years in the Jewish tradition, and that is Shemitah, the sabbatical year. It's something that hasn't played a major role in diaspora Judaism, especially not in liberal Judaism, and it often seems more of a problem to be solved rather than a solution to a problem. However, it deals with important themes that link both to Labor Day and to Rosh Hashanah. Shemitah, if understood literally, seems out of touch and out of place with modern life and the modern world, out of touch with life in a mostly secular world, out of touch with life in a non-agrarian capitalist consumer economy. And yet it expresses and is grounded in values of justice and essential equality that we can emphasize and use and interpret in our current setting. As imagined and created in ancient Judaism, it was part of a triad of unusual times that required a different mindset from those who practiced them. Every 7 days a Sabbath, in which master and servant, adult and child, and even domestic animals alike were to cease from working. Every 7 years a Shemitah or sabbatical year, when the earth was allowed to go fallow, debts were forgiven, and enslaved people were released from their servitude. And then every 50 years, and the year after the 7th sabbatical year, Yovel, a jubilee year, when all the land was to go back to its original owner's descendants, as it had been originally distributed, with an eye to equality of distribution. Now, in America, it is mostly tenured or at least tenure-track academics who have the possibility of getting a sabbatical. And in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, ministers and sometimes directors of religious education and music directors are given sabbaticals. Time for rejuvenation. Time to finish that book you've been writing and not quite been able to find the time to finish. Time for professional exchange. It is usually less than a year in length, but most Americans, whether professionals or working class, will never experience a sabbatical. It's not part of the culture for their particular profession. And the economics of both education and ministry are changing. So even though sabbaticals still exist, each year a smaller and smaller percentage of people doing the work are actually able to take advantage of the sabbatical system. In the ancient world, in a primarily agricultural economy, farmers were the prime beneficiaries of reduced workloads during a sabbatical. But even in ancient times, people asked that pesky question of who was going to pay for the lost productivity. If fields were to lie fallow, how could the nation be fed? And how do you pay your taxes to Caesar if your practice reduces your ability to pay in every 7th year? And so the religious command for this extensive form of rest came to be seen as a problem to be solved, rather than as a solution to some greater human problem. If Shemitah was going to be retained, how could it be worked around? People asked themselves. There were long debates finding ways around what was seen as a problem. So, what was that underlying value that allowed such a seemingly untenable practice to be put in place to begin with and then preserved in some reduced form through millennia, even though its practice looked different than what it had originally been? Rabbi David Teutsch, whose professional focus has been on Jewish ethics, has described the underlying meaning and value of the sabbatical, with its forgiveness of debts and freeing of enslaved people, and also of the Jubilee year with its redistribution of the land. This is primarily about redistribution of the land, redistribution of the economic means of production. It seems that throughout time, trickle down has actually trickled up unless there is an intentional intervention. This is something we see in parts of a couple different dynasties in ancient Chinese history, and for a brief window of time in Japan too, the idea of the equal field, which entails redistributing land, which was the primary means of production in an agricultural society, on the basis, in that case, of the available labor supply, rather than leaving patterns of inheritance to sequester wealth and well-being forever. And we see where the equal field system broke down in those dynasties. Long-lasting inequity became entrenched. The sabbatical year, seen through an ethical lens, is about periodically rebalancing what has gotten out of whack through inattention and inertia. It really is something we can see as a solution to a problem, though for it not to become the problem, it has to be reinterpreted according to its core principle, egalitarianism and justice, equity. In the middle of the 20th century, this function was handled in the United States by high taxes on the upper brackets of income tax and extensive social programs. Of course, that system of redistribution was never perfect and then was trashed by Ronald Reagan and never adequately restored in subsequent administrations. Similarly, the work of trade unions and employee advocacy was put on the block by Ronald Reagan and never put back in order. In our country, the mechanism of just redistribution is a mere shadow of itself, and there is no justice without meaningful and sustained redistribution. Because of our 24/7, 365 economic models, where there is no realistic possibility of any of those ancient models that require shutting something down temporarily to work, except as principles to apply in new settings. Our only choice is to have a model of continual redistribution aimed toward greater justice. Correcting the national policies and laws that have gone off the path of regular, just redistribution of wealth and power is a long and arduous task that we need to be engaged in for the long haul. And it can be depressing to see our efforts fail to make the desired difference year after year. So what are some ways to engage the ideas of the sabbatical year now without waiting to win those difficult national struggles? Maybe a starting place is going back to the agricultural food source origins of the sabbatical. The organization Shemitah Rising suggests these three among many other starting points. Planting a biodiverse garden focused primarily on perennial plants that don't require the same concentrations of labor that annual plants do. Starting a gardening cooperative, sharing seeds, tools, work responsibilities, expenses, and harvest to redistribute the possibility that one has into the well-being of others. Initiating a food rescue system in this area, delivering unsold edible food from markets and restaurants to food banks. There are ways that already exist, and there are ways that can be imagined and brought into being that are about redistributing the means, redistributing the power. In small ways, not just helping each other, but redistributing possibility. Will the world change overnight? No, absolutely not. But we can participate in meaningful action on a smaller scale that will make difference in lives as we learn to make redistribution of the means of production and well-being and power happen where we can change, where we can redistribute. So go now in peace and commit to rethinking ways we can influence and effect on some scale a just redistribution, even as we work for a humanity-wide just redistribution. Amen, and blessed be.